Afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity. I was not initially on the program, but I just felt like this is actually a very good story to tell. It's not a paper or anything, but it's a story to tell. I am from the city of Cape Town, and when I was an intern, I was thrown into the deep end, like literally into the deep end. And thanks to TMF, Table Mountain Fund, I was one of the recipients of the internship. And I was told that I am going to manage a nature reserve. But they didn't tell me that there was an operational landfill site right in the center of the nature reserve. So that hole that you see there was a dump site. And the nature reserve around it. So not only was the challenge the sprawling development around it, but there was actually trucks coming in to put some dump material. And what excited me was that then I would be the first manager and I would get 60,000 rand to spend. It's like, wow. So I have an opportunity to spend 60,000 rand. Then I need to know what am I going to spend it on. But so yeah. So as part of background, as I mentioned, the landfill site is in the middle of the nature reserve. The reserve was proclaimed in 1976 as a local nature reserve. But the landfill site still got a license to operate in 1985. So the city of Cape Town kind of thought, yeah, maybe they can interlink together. Yes, we do know that there is some critical vegetation type there, but at least we can still let our people go and dump. And then the Botanical Society came in and looked at the vegetation, which was Swartland Rhinoceros and Sandplain Fenbos, which are both critically endangered. And then they kind of proclaimed the site to be a botanical site, but still again, the landfill site still carried on. So that is the location. The nature reserve is one of the 24 nature reserves within the city of Cape Town. It's a little spot there. And as I had mentioned, the center part of it was an operational landfill site for 30 years. And this is what it looked like in the year 2000. And this is 4 years later. So this is in 2004. So in 2004, that's when I was placed, and the landfill site had actually reached its full capacity. So that 4 hectares was maxed, and therefore there was no area to put the dump. So therefore, they used it as a transfer station, and that's when we actually had to, myself and a student, we literally stood at the gate and we stopped people from coming in and dumping, because we knew that if we don't do it ourselves, nothing's going to be done. So we literally stood at the gate and said, no, you're not coming in. This is part of a nature reserve. So in 2006, we appointed our first nature conservation student to look at what can we do in terms of rehabilitating this 4 hectare that is part of a nature reserve. So one of the objective was obviously to try and rehabilitate this site and incorporate it into the nature reserve to provide viable biological habitat for our indigenous flora and fauna. So obviously we knew that we can never rehabilitate it to its natural state, but we can at least try and rehabilitate it and try to bring back some of the indigenous vegetation. But thinking that, we didn't even think of money. Where are we going to get money? We just knew that it needed to be done. And one of the things that we also needed to look at was, obviously because it was mined and then it was rubbish on it, we need to look at what are we going to be capping it with. So capping was another foreign term for us. All we thought of is the top 30 centimeter layer, the topsoil. We didn't care about what's going to be put at the bottom. What we wanted to know is that what will happen 30 centimeters above ground, so that we can actually be able to put some plants back. So what we did was, and also again, Cape Town was booming with a lot of development. We looked at areas that are going to go around for development, and we collected some soil samples. So what we did with that as well, instead of putting some seeds, we actually let it the vegetation grow on this without actually putting anything, just to see what seed bank is on this soil. And then also with that, we had to look at analyzing. That is our student, very passionate student at the time. And she had to also look at analyzing the soil. We needed to look at, as I mentioned, the seed bank. We also need to look at what other spreads are we looking at. And those are the areas below. That was Parklands, Brackenfell, and KwaZulu-Natal. So that was within the 50-kilometer radius, because we also didn't want to be bringing in a lot of foreign soil. And this was the result. So we looked at our 3 samples, and all of them came out with a lot of aliens and mostly grass, predominantly grass, but we did have some acacia species as well, which also informed us that even though we will have this top layer as our topsoil, we need to keep in mind that it's coming with foreign material. So therefore, we need to keep that. Look into what are we going to do in terms of budget. So that's when it started ringing a bell that actually we will need to have some money to look into this. And then one other thing that we did was we looked at the seed bank in the nature reserve and surrounding areas. We started collecting the seeds, and then we used different trays. Now we put the soil in the trays after. And then some of the seeds we also put in the soil that we're going to be using for capping, just to see if the indigenous vegetation is going to be able to compete or outcompete the aliens that we found. And then again, I cannot stress enough, there isn't better investment in terms of restoration than collecting seeds. It is time consuming. Also you have to have the timing to collect it. You need to know your species, you need to know your area, but that is the best investment in terms of rehabilitation. And there she was collecting the seeds. And then also we needed to look at if there is any potential water bodies that we can save in terms of this landfill site. There were records that in the 70s, people used to come and fish in this landfills, in the landfills that once it was a quarry, before they started using it as a landfill site, that there used to be some water in the landfill, and there was also fish, which hasn't been proven, but there is records of it. And so that area was quite dry. We needed to wait for wet season to see if there's going to be any water, but it is a retention pond, and there was water and rubbish as well. And yeah, so we waited for that there is enough water in there, and of course she got in there with all the rubbish, just to see if we are going to find any life, and yes, we found some stream-kicking frogs. So it doesn't matter what it looks like, these things will survive anyway. And so also the main thing of this research, it wasn't just about rehabilitating this landfill site, but to also look at areas that are within the city that have been degraded or been forgotten of. If there is potential to rehabilitate them, what can we learn from it, and what sort of guidelines can we use into rehabilitating this landfill site? And yeah, and also to use the program for environmental education, because the community only came in to dump. They didn't see the vegetation around it. They didn't realize the significance of it. Besides the Botanical Society being around, there has been reports about it. So we needed to actually get the ground going and start marketing this nature reserve, going to libraries, going to shopping centers, inviting people to come around and come and take them for walks, show them how important this place is. And always, if you're looking for volunteers, there's never a young crowd. It's always the tinies and the grannies but they are from the community. So we invited them for the first walk, and they were very interested, and most of them also had that knowledge of what it used to be, what fish was there, and what it looked like, how they used to run around. So those are the people that we wanted the buy-in from. And also again, the grannies bring grandkids. Grandkids will get their mothers and their dads into the nature reserve. So we were very strategic in how we tried to get people in. And we also used a lot of environmental education opportunities. We went to schools, Arbor Day, Mandela Day. We were involved in all of those things. And we also got the scouts. They like to do activities where they will do pulling of weeds, anything that is active. We brought them in. And also we wanted to make sure that we cover the entire communities because, you don't focus on one demographic. You go around and get the kids that had never been into a nature reserve. They always think that a nature reserve is in Kruger. They don't understand that nature is on their doorstep. So we wanted to get that message out that it's not just a dump, but it's actually a nature reserve, and it is your nature reserve. And when you are doing some of your projects, please come in. We will help you where we can. And also we did, like I said, we did some tree planting. That was before the water restrictions, so we did use tap water to water that. And then now the big work came in. So we were fortunate that we work for an organization that supports conservation, and the city invested a lot of money into this landfill site. So then it was officially closed in 2006 and the capping started. And this is the photo that I showed you of 2000. They needed to bring in the material, that's what it looked like. And then we had to get some green material as well just to help again with the capping. And also the city wanted to make some money. So what they did was they brought in a company that does compost. So they will compost that material and then sell it to the public while they're busy with the capping. And that is the same hill where it was capped. It was tons and tons and tons of trucks and soil. Most of it were collected from areas that are going to be developed, and we also have some quarries that are close by. So the engineers were also appointed to help with that. So that was their job. We cared about the 30-centimeter layer for the topsoil. And then that's when they brought in the soil, but then we had massive rains in 2006. All that topsoil washed off. Yes, and it washed off with hydroxidine, so it was really sad. So we needed to have some intervention. We got burdens put in. It was hessian and some sticks just to try and prevent, because obviously with the slope, just to prevent the soil from washing off, and also we needed to get some ryegrass in there. And then obviously we needed to try and get something that is sterile, because otherwise it's just going to take over. It was just a mission and a half. So all that money, we can just see it washing down, and there was nothing we can do about it. And then we had IKEA coming in. So then the topsoil, the hydroxidine washed off, we had IKEA. But then with IKEA, there was an opportunity to employ the locals. So we went to our local communities, we employed them through EPWP projects. They were paid about 80 Rand a day. We got them to help us with the weeding. And with that, we started we did some search and rescue on areas that were in for development. We got some bulbs out there, and that is some Babianas, Stipolia, and it was thousands and thousands of them just flowering there on the landfall. And this is part of the nature reserve. We had a hiking trail, also trying to encourage people to come in a nature reserve. In spring, it was just snowing with daisies. And this is Celiria fislata, one of the last remaining plants that Brackenfell Nature Reserve became one of the recipient sites to look at the rehabilitation of that species, and we are now working with Millennium Seed Bank, trying to put them back. And we planted about 60 plants in 2010, and only this year we found 2 viable seeds. The 60 plants were from 1 plant. So in a way, I had a discussion with some of our colleagues that we were cloning, but we will see. And also now we managed to put in some of our antelopes, that is the Cape Craze booking. We released it at the Nature Reserve. As you can see from the smiles from my colleagues, it was like, this is like a rhino to us. So we were very happy that we actually finally releasing it. into the nature reserve. As you can see, it was just skipping away, happy to have them. Okay, yeah, I'm almost done. And then, yeah, so this is some of the fauna that we have in the nature reserve. The chameleons, as you can see at the bottom, they're massive mole snake that are now finding a home. And we have some visitor fish eagles also coming into the nature reserve. And with all that, we also needed to do some monitoring. So we had to look at vegetation conditioning mapping, just to look at, in terms of our vegetation, after everything that we have done, are we moving in the right direction? So the dark colors is to show you the good vegetation, and the lighter coloring is to show you low conditions. So obviously the center of it will be the landfill site that had very little vegetation, but we're also using that to be for recreational purposes. That's where we're going to be putting our multi-purpose center, that's where we're putting in our visitor and then we have also through the years, we had a lot of visitors coming into the nature reserve. As you can see that in 2014 or 2016, we had just over 5,000 people coming to visit this nature reserve. It's amazing how amazing it is, and that is the reason why. This is what it looks like today from that dump site. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.